Hello and welcome to my channel. This week's project was a very different experience for me because it was right from the start going to be a gift for a dear friend. I had put some pieces of wood through the planer last week after I installed the new blades. And once those pieces of wood were processed, I was amazed with the quality of the wood. I was surprised actually. I had no idea what kind of wood this is, but my guess would be maple or oak. It just has such a beautiful color. Knowing I was going to make this as a gift, it definitely changed the whole dynamics of the cutting experience this time. No longer was I practicing and trying new things. I was now just going to utilize the skills that I have acquired so far to make something that was meaningful. And this was a first and a true pleasure to cut. Now with this piece of wood, the cutting was a lot slower. I believe it's a ½ inch thick or maybe a little bit less. And so what I did was I took a break during different sections. I did one section, took a break, then did another section, took a break, and so on until the piece was finished. And I'm learning that if I take frequent breaks, I don't get as tired, which is when I tend to get sloppy in my work. For the total cutout, minus the breaks, I'm guessing it was maybe 2 hours. I'd have to do some tallying on that to give you a more accurate read, but that's about right. Now, I used the number 5 Alta reverse blade with this, and I did have to replace it once because it was getting dull. That's something new for me. I didn't experience that before. And I pushed it further than I probably should have. The cutting was slow to begin with, but it was starting to struggle to cut. So I changed the blade a little bit later on in this piece. I changed the blade, and I was able to finish the project. Now that I know what a dull blade actually feels like, I'll definitely change it sooner, but I am thankful it didn't affect the quality of the cuts this time around. Now with this piece, a lot of the advice I have been given so far I did not use, as you might have noticed. But I'm learning when I can get away with that and when I can't. For example, instead of one complete cut, I was struggling with some of the turns, so I did what I was most comfortable with, and I bypassed that and cut it out in pieces. But being such a thick piece of wood, I really felt I wasn't going to have an issue with any of the small pieces maybe breaking off, and I certainly did not. It was a beautiful cut, it worked out very well, and I was happy with the outcome on those. The other thing I noticed with this being a bigger piece of wood, I believe it was a 12 by 12 piece that I used here, I had a hard time putting the blade through the holes. Now, being with the light on top, and I have to put it through the hole on the bottom, yeah, that was a little bit of a challenge. I think I'm going to have to come up with a plan on that, or if somebody has any suggestions on how to make that a little bit easier so that you can get them through the holes. But other than that, I didn't really have any major issues. But any advice that you may have would be greatly appreciated. I think what I was most excited about with this project is that there was very little sanding I had to do. The backside was extremely smooth. I had just a little bit of touch-ups to do, and for the most part, very little, just surface sanding to clean up the surface, and that was about it. It was really, really nice. It does make a difference on what wood you use and what blade to minimize the sanding. Now, when I finally did finish this project, or this cut, I was left with, how do I finish it? I always have a clear picture of what I want it to look like, but then when I get to this point, I kind of, what do they call, freeze up. I stared at this completed cut probably for a day and a half until I finally decided I wanted to keep the wood natural. I didn't want to stain it, and I coated it with linseed oil, boiled linseed oil, and that really brought out the natural color of this piece. I was pretty excited about that. Once that set and I was able to buff that and get that to a nice finish, I was left with the backer board. Now, I belong to several Facebook groups for scroll sawing enthusiasts, and I got a lot of suggestions on what I could do with the backer board, other than cut it out to put it on. I thought about whitewashing it. I've got a suggestion of using like a pearlesque or a gold. Of course, none of those options, other than whitewash, did I have any paint to do that with. I ended up just doing a clear acrylic matte finish, and the birch looked really good. The other thing with the cutout on the backing board, I had very little sanding to do on that as well, and I'm not sure why, because the plywood has been nothing but a nightmare for sanding reasons, and I don't know. For some reason this worked out extremely well, maybe because I had a newer blade on it, or I don't know. Whatever it was, it worked. So this cutout looked great. The backing board was a quick cut. There was no real issues with this. Other than it was tedious. Everything's tedious for me because I'm not used to doing it, but I will do this project again, and I may leave in the other parts that I excluded. I'm not sure, but I really did enjoy cutting this one. And as you'll see, I'm going to show you my finished product. It's going to be against several backgrounds that I have in the house. I hung it up on 3 different walls, and I thought it turned out well. If you got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you next week. God bless.